Let's just say the market rises 10%, but you're only seeing about 8%, give or take. Where did the rest of those returns go? What's the difference here? Many people blame the fee. And I've had a lot of conversations about this in the past because a lot of people tend to go, this is usually what happens, towards a cheaper one, thinking the fee is a difference. It's not. Not always. You've got a thing called currency movements, tracking difference and spread. Spread's a thing that I will explain, but is often the culprit for most newer funds. They can quietly eat your portfolio without you realizing. Now, it's not by your fault. It's by design of the brokers that you may be using, basically trading 2-on-2. They're a bugger for it. Now in this video, I'm going to show you 3 things that is probably the reason why your funds are falling behind and you're not getting the optimum performance. Because if you are new, you will probably have done this because, as I say, designed by the brokers. These are very, very simple checks that you need to do before you start making investments. Because yes, saving 0.05% in a fee is pointless if you're going to ignore everything else around it. Many investors misunderstand the obvious. You cannot directly invest into an index fund. The S&P 500 or the All World Fund, there are a set of rules that are done by providers. iShares, Vanguard, Inverso, whatever insert provider here. They build these products to replicate, keyword, replicate them. But the fund also has real costs. You've got transaction fees, you've got dividends, cash movements, and that's going to create a thing called tracking difference. That's quite the big thing here. The tracking difference is the index fund and the difference between what the provider are trying to mimic. The fee is telling you what the provider is charging for that service. You are buying a service technically. This is why, personally, I go for Vanguard funds because they track it the best. Because they've got the biggest volume, they've got the least amount of spread, the biggest reputation and time doing it. But this is why as well, I don't think the cheapest ETF wins. I like to use a term called trip over pennies and you'll lose pounds. And that's kind of the obvious because I think that works in the frugal world as well, where people just buy cheap and expect cheap and you have cheap and then you've got to buy it again. It's kind of like that with ETFs if you are looking at the wrong thing. Because yes, ETF A here, 0.12%, yeah, it sounds quite good under the hood, doesn't it? When you look at it as a broad brush, we can, ooh, that's quite good. And then yeah, you got 0.22% for a more expensive one. That is a 0.10% difference. Not a lot, really. It's about £10 a year if you've got 10 grand invested. But yeah, it matters if you think in decades, and that is always the argument, isn't it? People use that argument, oh, you're going to save so much money. Really? Are you? I don't think you will. Because a better fund will cost more. You've got trading costs to consider. You may have foreign tax on dividends in certain places here. How quickly are those dividends reinvested within that fund? And whether that fund actually owns the stocks it says, because some of them are sampled indexes, which is, well, it's just fake, isn't it? Now imagine here that the one with the bigger fees returns 10%. That's quite common. But the cheaper one may be like 9.78% or 9.7%, something like that, if that makes sense. Despite charging more, the actual fund that is providing a better service is actually going to make you more money. But the main thing here that I think people forget, let's just say the VWAP. This is a great example because you are buying it in pounds. It is a UK-based fund technically, but the base currency of it is in USD. Any ETF pretty much that has a US stock within it, technically, especially if they pay dividends, will have a default base of USD because it's the biggest market and the biggest currency. There's something under there, a bit of a trade-off, especially when you look at pounds, even though you're buying in pounds. And there's another thing I will showcase in a minute where people get it really wrong. Because the base currency is in USD, it is reporting its funds in USD, which is kind of a bit of a problem, as I say, if you're in pounds or euros. This is where we have a thing called the FX effect, where if pound sterling is going to drop versus the dollar, you're going to get a discrepancy. I'll put a little screenshot on the screen here, just show you the thing called FX effect. I've had it a lot with crypto, certainly at certain points. And yeah, it can go in your favor at certain points, but not always. And again, if you're holding for the long term, you don't really want this kind of lingering because it might actually, well, reduce what you're actually making, which is kind of a problem. Because technically, yes, your fund might not be underperforming. It might just look less because maybe the dollar's dropped by whatever, or it's risen, or whatever way it's gone. You might actually lose 1 to 2%, which, as you can imagine, over a period of time, if you've been holding it, is quite a kick in the bollocks, isn't it? This is kind of why, in my personal investments, I stick to Britain. I stick to the old British pounds. I buy UK stocks, so I don't have this issue. Most of my funds technically have a little bit of a Britishness to it where they do track mainly the British side of it more, which is good. Whereas sometimes with the All World Fund, the S&P, whatever, it's basically all American in certain cases, and you may well lose out. And as I say, I'll showcase on the screen in a minute where the beginners get it totally wrong. And the final thing we need to talk about before I jump onto the screen is a thing called spread, liquidity, and slippage. This is a thing, right? You may find that if you're buying on, say, trading 2-on-2 and you're just pressing the buy now, there's going to be a thing called spread. There will be liquidity in terms of how much is getting sold or bought, whatever. And you have a thing where you fall in the middle of that. That's where the slippage comes in. Technically, right? The buy price might be, say, $100, say, and the sell price might be 99. There's a pound slippage gap in there. You're going to find yourself in between that. With a crap fund, it will be a pound. With a better fund, it might be 10p, for example, right? So this is where you've got to be careful, because every time you buy, and say if you're doing a dollar cost average every single week or month or whatever, every single time you are losing a bit of money there. Every single time. Whereas if you are getting the best possible price or a limit order, you are going to find that you are getting the exact price you want, not the price that it's telling you you can go into. It's like moving into a car. Do you want to be in that one, not the one that's behind it, for example? And this is why, again, I'm comfortable with the Vanguard ones. Even though it may look more expensive, you are going to get a better spread and a lot less slippage, which is kind of what you want. Again, I know it's hidden costs and you're never going to see it, but for some people it matters. But let's jump onto the screen, because there's something that we do need to talk about, which, again, we will look at brokers and stuff just to give you a bit of annotation. But are the funds the same? One of them may well include emerging markets, for example. So the All World Fund on the screen. This is my screener. If you are interested, there's a link below. This is on the Plus membership. It's fantastic. There's a Discord coming. I've nearly built it. So if that helps, it will probably help you with more discussions. But this is, as you can imagine, the VWrap. Very, very simple. Top fund. Low fees, technically, tracks it very, very closely. It's well diversified. Now, again, the base currency, it is in USD, like anything. But this holds more stocks versus other ones. It has emerging markets. It doesn't really apply the ESG exclusions as much, which again could increase cost. But for some people, that is a massive, massive factor. And again, all these different things are going to marry up in terms of, can you invest? Is it ethical investing? All kinds. You get the idea. But as well, when we scroll down to this, you've obviously got the price versus the NAV. That is important, by the way, for signaling liquidity and friction around that. But this is the thing. Same exposure, but cheaper. This is the two options. I've not fully verified if they are that close. I'm just letting the tool do its job. But going down again, another thing that may well be like, oh, is it the same thing? Well, actually, no, because each fund has different sector weights. So you're going to may actually get different performances, because each provider is trying to mimic the index fund to be the same. So there's always going to be discrepancies. Let's kind of look at this one, because this one's going to give you a bit of an idea, because it is similar, don't get me wrong. And you could scroll down and you can see, yeah, the price is not too bad. Yeah, still got the same situation. The price nav is a little bit different here, which is something to be wary of. But again, situation is the weights are a bit different. That's a 31% technology, whereas the All World Fund was a little bit less. Different weights of the countries, volatility is similar-ish, but they are different. They are slightly different, and that's the thing. Again, it's entirely up to you for obvious reasons, but as I say, not everyone will get the perfect results. Now, the more newer fund is FWRG. Again, similar sort of vibes. It doesn't have as much base currency stuff, so its performance is a little bit better, but it's only been around for a while. I think this data is wrong, so ignore that bit. But again, the weight's 32% here. A little bit more of America, a little bit different, a bit more volatility actually, but its base currency is actually Great British Pound. So that's actually a benefit, which is probably why it performs a bit better. So as you can see, it depends. But for me, what would you rather have? USD based currency and maybe slightly more volatility in some senses, but it's entirely up to you, isn't it? Now, in terms of where I see people go wrong completely, when you're a beginner, so let's just use light year as a random example, right? Trading 2-on-2 is exactly the same. You go onto like any sort of screener, you go to say the fund screener, and what happens is fund size is always the highest point. And you can see there's a couple of different discrepancies between the dollar, euro, and the pound. This is where people get it wrong because what you've got here is the S&P 500, but you've also got this one here. What's the difference? There isn't, apart from the currency. So if you go on this one, turns out actually what you are doing, you are buying in dollars. A problem. So be mindful of that because it is all in dollars and there may well be an actual FX charge to this fund. This is where a lot of beginners go wrong. They just look at the biggest funds. Well, actually, you want to look for the best one for your currency. Share currency USD. Problem. Base currency, that will mainly always be USD. But when it's like a base currency, that is essentially the underlying currency, right? Where it's tracked in that value. So when it pays out dollars, it will be in those dollars, for example. Whereas a share currency is where the FX effect will happen. Hence why I showed you that thing before. So again, go to the exact same funds. The prices are going to be different. Look, 10.82%. Oof. Why is that a little bit different? Well, let me showcase because the share price is in USD. Great British Pound, sorry, not USD. So yeah, as you can say, just showcase 10.82%. What is this one? 11.04. Oof. So yeah, there's the actual demonstration for you. But again, even though I showcase those numbers just there, yeah, it's a small number, but you might not actually get that performance over the course of that year to date. For example, because you may actually have a circumstance in your life which is different. You may invest weekly or monthly. You might get better entry orders because that sequence I showed you yesterday is an average because it's not going to go from the lowest to the high, if that makes sense. It's going to go from when the year started on the 1st of January. You may have bought when the market dropped. You may have bought when it risen. So your differences might be there for obvious reasons. You may also have a fund where dividends are reinvested or accumulated within, if that makes sense, or paid out to you. So again, there's a little bit of a discrepancy there every single time. So just be mindful of that. And also withdrawals, deposits may well harm your performance because you may deposit more or less at certain months. But what I actually compare, and it's quite a simple list. I put it on the screen. There's 7 here. What does it track? Countries, companies, yada, 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 right? At the end of the day, it's all personal circumstance. Can you like this fund forever? Does it matter if it goes up or not? What will make it change? You've got to ask those sort of questions as well. But yeah, this is why as well with my ETF screener, I've put like a basic portfolio health. This is a thing that will hopefully help or mitigate any problems that you may have. This is my overall holdings as it stands, 84 out of 100. So yeah, it's got strong risk management. The weakest part is the geographical spread because I'm mainly focused on the UK and some US and other countries as well. As you can see, largest is 63%, which is probably going to be England. But that's just my portfolio. But overall, you may find different numbers for your own portfolio, so feel free to check it out. But as I say, your portfolio looks healthy, nothing that looks crazy. I may well add more to this. I'm certainly thinking about like adding more about certainly fees and stuff like that, like management around that. But yeah, overall, as you can see, it's okay. But yeah, as you can see, I could probably add more to this in terms of like fees and what could be done, or maybe essentially tracking of indexes and stuff. Yeah, but that's stuff for another day. So yeah, I don't think your index funds are broken. I just think people may be micromanaging them a bit too much, but actually the bigger picture is down to you. The cheapest ETF might well be the right choice, but not always. You've got to also look a little bit deeper. Sometimes just go with a good provider that will provide something a little bit nicer. But let me know in the comments, what index funds do you like to track? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that bell button to see more.